The Paradox Pokémon that were introduced in Pokémon Scarlet and Pokémon Violet will surely play a role in the hidden treasure of Area Zero, most likely in the second part, the Indigo Disc, which will have something to do with Terrapagos. There are many theories surrounding these Pokémon, ranging from they are exactly that, past and future forms of the Pokémon they represent, and the one I've been defending for quite a while where they're the manifestation of what some people believed would be in the crater. But whatever the theory you defend, there's one thing that can't be denied. They are related to Terra energy, and that might mean a tragic fate is on the way. Or not. So hey, I'm not so a strainer, and what about the Paradox Pokémon? Let's get into it. These new creatures that seem to be right out of a fantasy book, I mean, just look at their names: Iron Threads, Roaring Moon, Bigfoot, yeah, pretty fantastical. But these creatures are part of the closed environment created in Area Zero, and apart from the ones we've caught and that earthquaking Titan, they don't seem to leave that place. The Titan is a strange situation, considering we never really got an explanation as to why it is there. I mean, you can only really fly out of the crater, there's no other way that we know of, so unless there's a secret passage, someone put it there. But that's not the important part. The important part is that all the Paradox Pokémon are related to that time machine. The professor's research led into the creation of a machine capable of providing them with the Pokémon they've been searching for all along. The Pokémon from the books they love to read, the Scarlet and Violet books. This was supposed to be their paradise, and their will that lived inside the AI fought hard to defend it, but in the end we were able to stop them. And logic dictates that the stream of Paradox Pokémon was also stopped the moment we did that. Gameplay-wise, of course it makes sense for them to continue to spawn. Some people might need a Paradox Pokémon for competitive, and other people want to shiny hunt a Paradox Pokémon. But lore-wise, this has a lot of implications. The only other strange category of Pokémon we ever had were the Ultra Beasts. They were also one of those situations where them being actual Pokémon was questioned, and strangely enough, there was also a bit of interdimensional thing going on with them. They came from somewhere different. The issue is that, while we stopped the events that were taking place in the Alola and closed the Ultra Wormholes, we didn't stop them from ever happening. Those Pokémon still exist, and they even showed up in the DLC for Pokémon Sword and Shield as Dynamax Adventure bosses. This is because the supposed source from where they came from wasn't man-made. Ultra Wormholes exist, some Pokémon can even create them themselves like Necrozma. In Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, we're dealing with a completely different situation where the Paradox Pokémon have no such power. So the questions I have are basically, will they simply disappear? Will we ever have a chance to catch these Pokémon again in a game that is not in Paldea? And if so, how will they justify their presence? Paradox Pokémon have no gender and are unable to produce offspring, even with Ditto. This means that the current population of these Pokémon will, in time, just die down. They will go extinct. In fact, only the future Paradox Pokémon will have a way to exist once more, considering most of them are said to have been man-made in the future. Some even by aliens. Yeah, aliens. I'm telling you, these Pokémon being actually real makes no sense. But let's pretend they do make sense. Even then, with this in mind, I feel like the only way we'll be able to see these Pokémon in a future game is if we trade them there. I can see a way for them to actually show up as catchable, considering how they are connected to the time machine, and that time machine cannot work without Terra energy. Even if you're like me and you're still on the dream theory, that theory still is about how Terra energy, due to the power of very likely Terrapagos, can make your dreams/wishes become real. It also goes without mentioning that this is connected to the battle mechanic of Gen 9, so we'll very likely have it stay in Paldea. Z-Move stayed in Alola, D-Max stayed in Galar, and this will likely stay here as well. The only thing to ever break that mold was Mega Evolution, because it was a more developed situation, not just a regional one. I won't deny that something can still change when it comes to how we perceive this Pokémon. The Terra phenomenon is still unexplained and unexplored, and the second part of the DLC will likely show us what really is happening in the crater. In fact, if we consider Kitakami a different region, which all things point to it being, we can see that Terra crystals exist outside of Paldea. In fact, the Blueberry Academy seems to have artificial crystals as well. So this shows us the possibility of the source of the power, the Terra energy or Terrapagos, might still be something that can be replicated in future region. But as I said, if they come from the time machine itself, the quote-unquote time machine, something hidden deep down in the crater, a literal building basically, they are likely trapped. But this, as I said, is if the time machine is actually a time machine. Because you know how I feel about these Pokemon, you know how I think they are not really the product of time travel, but actually the product of dreams becoming real, the power of the Terra energy. And while I was discussing this topic, this same script on stream, Nightshade reminded me of something very interesting. When you talk about dreams in the Pokemon universe, there's one thing that comes to mind, but that I needed a little push to remember: the dream world. I've talked about it before and I'm talking about it again here. I feel like the next 2 revisits will be Johto, and then in Gen 10 we get some UNOVA. And UNOVA was when we got the dream world. A place we could go by tucking in one of our Pokemon, and then we could explore different areas, catch Pokemon with dream world abilities, or simply do some gardening. This was a browser-based thing, but browser-based things have kind of died down in the last few years, so I don't see it happening that way. I could see it as part of Pokemon Home or even as part of Pokemon Sleep, but I feel like they might do something different. What if they actually let us enter the dream world through the game, the actual game? Dream world abilities became hidden abilities, which is something we now have access to way easily than back in the day. So they would have to create a new appeal for that specific feature. I feel like removing it completely is off the cards, since it is related to the plot of the original games with the whole Musharna thing. So I think they'll really develop how it works. So what if instead of hidden ability Pokemon and berries, we get dream Pokemon or paradox Pokemon? As I said, until they prove me wrong with the DLC, I feel like way too many things point at them not being real. The whole paradox to me is more like a logical paradox than a temporal one. They are the Bigfoot of the Pokemon world, the creatures that people never thought existed, but as they went down the crater, they were kinda open to everything. They questioned reality itself, what science knew at the time. All those legends, all those myths, they were basically on their own treasure hunt, and just like us in the main games, they were only trying to find their own treasure. And I feel like that's exactly what the power of Terrapagos gave them. So just like the Ultra Beast showed up in Gen 8 after being introduced in Gen 7, I feel like the Paradox Pokemon after being introduced in Gen 9 might show up in Gen 10 in some kind of UNOVA revisit by not the power of Pokemon Home, but the actual power of dreams. I think Johto is next, because of how Hisui is being hinted in Kitakami, and Sinjo was also mentioned in Pokemon Legends Arceus. But I don't discard the possibility of them just not following any pattern and just moving on to Gen 5 straight up. But just like I think that ever since Gen 6 or maybe even Gen 5 everything has been building up for a big Pokemon event, I see the same thing continuing here. In the original Gen 5 games, Team Plasma tries to access the dream world to try and spread their message through dreams. What if Getsis finds out that Terra energy can make things a lot easier and just finds a way to use some in a Gen 5 sequel? This would connect Paldea to UNOVA, the same way that Kalos was connected to Hoenn. They are building a web of events, and I can see that web stretching far and wide and slowly connecting every single recent event, every catastrophic event in the Pokemon world. And the Paradox Pokemon will likely be a part of it when we once again reach the region that had us dreaming for the first time. But that is all I have for you today. While I think that Paradox Pokemon won't be a common occurrence in many regions, I feel like the existence of the Dream World in UNOVA might make it possible for them, in case their dreams come true, to become a thing in that region. But what about you? How did you feel about the Dream World? Let me know in the comments down below. And now, like the video if you like it, dislike if you don't, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more Pokemon content, and also ring the bell so you know when the next video is out. You can follow me on social media and Twitch. I stream there Wednesday to Sunday, not Saturday, or join our Discord. All the links are in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.